maybe I'm misremembering it, but I remember standing on a chair and telling one of our cameramen to stand up with me to try and film. And I saw mse wa GSU akatoa hiyo nini yake refu akijaribu kumgonga Raila. Man. Drama.
Iko Nini. Episode 268. Tukisema like, subscribe, hit the notification button, tell a friend to tell a friend. Sindio?
Yeah.
Na leo tuko na mse ule hitaji introduction cause kimona kwa video najua ni nani. So si lazima hata seme jina jo. Niaje.
Fiti sana.
Buda jo tuko honored kukuhave hapa. Si of course tumekuwa. Sijui kama can people be fans of a journalist?
I ask myself that a lot, but I'm a fan of many journalists. Many journalists. Me first, before hata tuendele, can I just say I'm so excited to be here. I follow your podcast. It's the funniest thing. Ubaya huyu rapture bana sijui anamkanga nini sangapi yani. I was really looking forward to also just hearing that banter yani unifiti sana. But you guys are doing really interesting stuff. But I mean to your question, I guess, you could be a fan of somebody, but when you're on the other side, ni uncomfortable.
Najua.
Ni uncomfortable kiasi.
Because lazima you have to report the news. But I think maybe apart from that, maybe we can say you're like one of the most admired journalists in Kenya. And you understand why that would be the case, eh?
Well, I guess because of the work that we've done. I mean, and we know when you're in this thing long enough, I guess people get... and I mean, to be honest, I'm not a rich man. So the only thing that I have is my credibility. Hapo ndio naekanga investment. So I guess that's possibly why.
Alafu pia unajua yako to some level is you're not a rich man because of personal choices like integrity. Because ukidecide kurusha integrity nje, I feel like
man,
you reach there.
That's true. But it's better to be, I guess, you can be rich but just morally bankrupt. You can sleep on the most comfortable bed but huwezi lala. And so that gives me peace.
Because hata you nini, I think hata before to dig in like a lot of stories that you did that zile sisi from the outside looking in kwa tunakuangalia tunashindwa kunaendaje. Ulijipataje kwa hiyo space? Because I know you started out as an intern. How did you end up being like one of the top investigative journalists hapa Kenya?
I mean, it's a chance meeting, and I write about it in my book. I don't know whether he does as well in his. Okay, so to explain, I always wanted to do deeper stories than the ones nilikuwa naziona kwa news. I thought that we should be able to go deeper, to invest more time. So I didn't know what to call it at that time. Sikuwa najua ati ni investigative journalism. I just knew that it had to be something deeper, right? And then chance meeting in the newsroom. Na mse fulani. You remember those paper bags, those green paper bags ambazo zilikuwa na calendar?
Nazikumbuka.
So mse akakuja akajaribu kuniuzia viatu brown kama hizi, but leather, very nice Ethiopian leather. But that time tulikuwa tumesota, so nimwambia hey bro, mi ni intern, mi sina do, but I just finished my internship. Then turns out that I was one of the only people who would talk to this guy. Alikuwa ametoka Mombasa, alikuwa fresh. One day, apparently, Mimi and Boni Odinga, we invited him out to lunch, and we just started a friendship like that. Then we started being sent out to on stories, and then the first, like, we started doing small stories. Then one big story came across his desk first. And then our boss asked him, who do you want to work with? And he was like, Oni boy wangu.
Okay.
And that's how we started. And that guy is Muhammad Ali, of course. So shout out to him. I mean, without those moments of meeting and that sort of thing, I don't think that I'd have started really, so I credit him with a lot.
Okay. Alafu nini that's another thing I'm sure people are going to ask like saizi vile amekuwa politician when ni journalist nyini bado ni mabeste, are you still close?
Sana hata tulikuwa tuna chat jana usiku. Alikuwa ananisomea juu sijaenda kumuona for a long time. By the way, pole Moha. Sijaenda kumuona for a long time, but we chat now and again. Obviously his life is more busy now. But uni mtu tumetoana mbali sana na yeye, like he wasn't just like a friend in the newsroom. Alisimama kwa wedding yangu,
okay.
So ni mtu tunajuana, and we've been through a lot of shit together. So sio mtu atijua amekuwa mwanasiasa ati now we can stop being friends. What we do is now just respect each other's space and keep it moving.
Alafu kuna watu wanasema amebadilika majabadilika. Because yo kitu imekuwa debate sana. Sometimes I go to his social media naona watu wako like budo umebadilika, you're not the Moha we used to know.
But let me ask the question, who is the Moha that you used to know? I think and let me use the analogy that Mandela used one time. Alikuwa kwa town hall na kaulizwa kuhusu Palestine. Because someone is your enemy doesn't mean that he's my enemy. Me, I have a completely different experience and understanding of Moha. I know the guy from a completely different point of view. And when it comes to politics, sure, there's things that I disagree with. Sure, there's positions that he's taken that I disagree with. But at the end of the day, is the man behind those decisions the same person that I knew? Yeah, he is. He's the same person. He's I think what people tend to forget is that, and far be it from me to defend a politician here, but I'm defending him as my friend.
Yes.
This guy is one of the best performing members of parliament in Mombasa, in the country. He has transformed a lot in terms of the education sector in Mombasa. He does a lot. His political choices might not be mine. His political friends might not be mine. But if you're playing a specific game, you play by the rules of that game. You don't go in imagining that you will change that game. And I think what people are coming to realize and maybe are having difficulty with is the fact that he is now in a different game. And what he's done as much as he can is to try and survive and retain parts of himself that, can help him sleep at night. But at the same time, it's a different game. It's a different ball game from journalism. It's a different profession. So people need to start to think about it from that way. And I don't think he's changed. I think the game that he's playing has changed. But himself, I mean, if I'm to assess that, no, I don't think he's changed. Moha is still the same guy.
Okay. Na ni after how long ulijua like alikuwa na political ambitions? Is it something like alikuwa nasema like one day tunawatandika but one day nitajoin ni try to change things?
For the longest time, I mean, this is more his story to tell than mine, but I'll tell you when I first knew. For the longest time, we would talk about these kinds of things, and he didn't really seem interested in politics. But like I was telling you before the show started, there was a series of stories that we had done. And things were just getting worse and worse in the newsroom. For journalists, but also generally speaking for the country. You could feel like you're doing things, but things aren't changing the way that you'd expect using the platform that you have. And so I think he got tired of trying to do those things and not seeing the same results. And where I thought, my choice was to leave the newsroom to continue journalism the way I wanted. His choice was to leave the newsroom and impact the lives of people directly through politics. So one day tulikuwa Ghana actually. Tulikuwa tunafanya hii story ya the 2013 election. So we had gone there to compare with what had happened in Ghana, and we were sitting down to lunch one day. Ilikuwa ni mimi, yeye, cameraman wetu anaitwa Sam, and our producer anaitwa Kasim. And that was the first time that I heard him say, guys, I don't think I'm going to be in this newsroom much longer. So like, okay, what do you want to do? I was like, I think I'm going to go into politics. We're all very shocked. But knowing the popularity of that guy, we knew that he'd make. We knew that he would make it.
Cause hiyo jina nini like jicho pevu
man, hiyo ni jina kubwa hadi siku hizi yani. Naulizwa na mlienda wapi? Mohamed tunamwonanga, lakini wewe ulienda wapi? Na hiyo jicho pevu yenu, you know, suffice to say that's fine, I'm associated with that. My story nini was called the inside story, but watu wakumbukangi hiyo, wanakumbuka jicho pevu, and that shows you the impact that guy had.
Because even that's what nilikuwa nataka kuuliza, like at that point, because najua naturally pia as humans we have to be zile za I'm here at that point. Ulikuwa na filaje vile ilikuwa tuko tunaita hizo vitu zote jicho pevu, tuko tuna ya kizungu, tuko na ilikuwa
ilikuwa mnatambua
ya kizungu ulikuwa tunaiwatch tu, lakini kwa tunangoja ile
hiyo jicho pevu ya Kiswahili, alafu kuna jicho pevu ya Kiingereza. You know, the thing about it that's interesting is, I mean, obviously you want your story to also be spoken of in the same, you know, in the same nini. But what I always acknowledged about Moha's about Jicho Pevu was that my contribution may not have been, you know, such that we're now level pegging in terms of prominence and that sort of thing. But I appreciated it because I knew the sort of person that Moha was. Also the kind of, I guess the language is also an important thing. Watu wengi huwa nasikiza Kiswahili, you know, and sometimes when you're told a story in that language, wanabamba sana. And then thirdly, like Moha's style was just attractive, right? We have very different styles in terms of storytelling. Very different styles. And so he was more, you know, out there in your face. I'm different. And our styles blended and worked together. And for me, I think every good partnership needs that kind of understanding. That someone at certain points in time is going to be the person that people will pay attention to, and others work not behind the scenes, maybe alongside, but the contribution is to a wider goal, and we all appreciated that. Na kuna siku moja ati Moa alikuja akaniambia ati we mi ndio jicho pevu. No, he always appreciated that the work and the effort was an equal contribution. And and we all, I think that's what people don't realize about that guy. Very, very humble guy.
Okay. Because you may remind Pia, like I remember when himself watch football. Not as much.
Sio hivyo. I mean, the last time nilikuwa na check was the time of I was in Form 4. Wakati wakina Andri walikuwa wamehit sana. That was the time that I used to watch football, but I follow it like just generally.
Because reason nakwambia hivyo ni like there's this guy called Peter Drury. So people always quote him. And I remember when he was employed by Sky Sports, a lot of like traditional football fans were like, we don't want this guy, he's too dramatic, like his way of he's too poetic. So pia na feel kama nani sasa he was very poetic.
Exactly.
You see, like he was very poetic, and that's what maybe people
responded to. And Peter Drury, at least I know Peter Drury. And when you listen to a football match, it's like listening with a perfect soundtrack. Ushacheki movie and you're like, man, how do you end up search soundtrack? It's like watching and listening at the same time. And that's so true. Like Moha's style was very, very like poetic, very, you know, and that's why he came up with all of those words that we had never heard before. Jaramandia, shagala bagala, zengwe.
Oh man, all sorts of things.
Kwa fiti sana.
You used to be a fan of Raya.
Tulikuwa tumepata naye because we used to do a certain show kitambo ilikuwa inaitwa Raya, ilikuwa on NTV, and there's once that tulipata na Ganet and he was like Raya, so we didn't expect that from him.
So
but that was
what was out. But remember, Moha was also a reggae DJ.
Yeah. Oh.
Ras Moha. He had a show on Radio Maisha. Ilikuwa ni kubwa
Yeah.
sana.
Oh,
Reggae
okay.
Splash.
Yeah.
Every Sunday.
Damn, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
nilikuwa
interesting.
naisikiza. Then he used to go on tours all over the place. Nilikuwa naitwa Ras Moha, another Moses.
Yeah. Alafu nini kwanza kitu moja lazima pia nikupatie credit. Nimechiki umetoka kumention like your cameraman and your producer. I think there's a time we were talking about journalism hapa Kenya na tulikuwa tunasema like some of the most uncelebrated people wanakuwaga nyinyi as reporters and now the cameraman behind. And the team behind because mostly it's the news presenters that are put on a certain pedestal. I don't know your views on that.
Actually, that's interesting. I've always been of the view that there's no, well, I mean, there's obviously these sayings, there's no I in team and teamwork makes a dream work. But when it comes to a profession like journalism, so unajua saa hii si tuko mbele ya kamera, so utaonekana show nini podcast Ikonini watu wanajua ni Mwafrika. But kuna wasee wako behind the scenes. Should I say kuna msee saa hii yako behind the scenes mwenye anafanya kazi mob sana that makes you know, so that kind of teamwork needs to be celebrated. And it's always been my philosophy that you should do that. So when like back in 2008 2009 when we first won the CNN award, I felt sad that Moha wasn't there standing alongside with me because for one of the stories that we won, alikuwa like we did it together. But what I did with that story is that I credited both. I entered the Nini. We couldn't enter the Swahili version, so I entered the English version and put the cameraman and all of that, and we won the awards together. And ever since that time, I think, I don't know kama watu walichukua sasa hiyo nini, but ever since that time, anytime we've been nominated for awards or that sort of thing, we do that. And then also at Africa Uncensored, the credit list is a very important thing. Lazima ucredit watu, and anytime I do that, it's not so much to just say at your daps because you've worked. It's because I truly know that there's no way that I'd have been here were it not for the contributions of very many people. Now sometimes ukiwa na hiyo platform unafaa upea watu their flowers.
Okay. Na unafeel nini juu ya like the present day news presenters? Because I feel like is the art of news presenting dying? Because I feel like reporting is still there, like the guys who go on the ground, but watu wale tunaona baadaye kwa screen imekuwa different because of Twitter, like we get breaking news from Twitter. So if we get the clips of the reporter on ground tuna watch.
Exactly.
But
I think it's not dying, but it's just changing. I think technology has changed how we consume the news. Technology has changed how we even think about or feel about the news and the people who report it. So like a news anchor's job today is, I think, ought to be a different thing than what it used to be. So a news anchor would mainly just read the news, maybe do a couple of interviews, at least here. But today I think what the news anchor has to be is a person who, if there was a role, it would be like a person who puts context into everything on air. So lazima ni mtu anajua what's going on, but deeper than that, what it all means. Juu mimi sitaka chini ni cheki a 30-minute, 40-minute show or news if it's just, you know, report after report after report, unless the news is interesting. What I'll wait for ni kitu yenye ananipatia context. And that's what separates the boys from the men, or the girls from the women, or what have you, or the theys from the thems, you know, about 2024. Right? So let me give you a great example. Yvonne Okwara, people think that she's just a news anchor. Some people, and those people are very seriously misinformed. That's one of the smartest people that I know. And you see it anytime she does an interview with somebody. Anytime that she's talking, or she's trying to, like, she has this thing on one of her bulletins where she explains stuff. She gets what her job is, and that's why for all of this time amekuwa on top of her game. Naona kuna wengine that watu walikuwa na wasifu sana, sitawataja jina, but walikuwa na wasifu sana, msee ako poa nini what give them the opportunity to do that and they crumble. You get and this is what's exciting but also difficult about this time. What technology is doing is that it's exposing real talent, as well as exposing, you know, I don't say not real talent, but
I know.
So unajua chenye nasema.
Okay cause news Kenya unajua tumekuwa na an interesting relationship nayo, ama nini, just hizo news anchoring and such, because I feel like at some point Gia Capital ilikuwa about accents, like if you had the right accent you can just nakunga time
Capital
FM you could say Eldret
management.
Alafu kwanza nini kitu ingine pia nimetry kukumbuka hapo juu ya Moha na how is this thing. I feel like there's also a lot of journalists right now that are using journalism as a path into political jobs. Would you take it that way? Because we have people like of course right now the press nini wa gava saizi inaitwa Hussein
Mohamed
yes, apart from Hussein of course mse best yetu kama Kennedy Morezi pia sijui nini wa
Murang'a mani
Meru
Tarakaniti.
Well I mean wako by the way unaweza ukianza kuwataja wako wengi sana that have entered politics or politics adjacent.
Talam
Talam but this is why I think, because you spend so much time covering these people and covering the topics and covering the people, journalists build a platform on understanding and making sense of the politics of the country. So for many it's a natural step, like okay, so nikitoka hapa what can I do with my skills? Where are my skills best needed? It's in the publicity and the publicity around the politics, but also in the craft of politics. The good ones will get it, you know. And so there are many. Remember Granton Samboja also became a governor. Like kuna wengi sana.
Samboja used to be a
governor, I think ni Taita Taveta.
He was a journalist?
He was a journalist before that. He was a journalist before that. Kuna wengi sana all over the place. To me, there's what I think what should be worried about is that there's this uncomfortable relationship sometimes between journalists, wanahabari, and politicians that sometimes goes from being a politician is your news source to a politician is your friend to you're doing a favor for a politician to you find yourself now working on his campaign to umeingia. You get that's the progression, right? What if you want to be a journalist, you need to remember that. And you know, maybe I'm not the best example, but what I've tried to do is that I don't have a lot of like friends who are politicians, like the one who I can truly call my friend sai ni Moha, because ni mtu tumetoana mbali na yeye. But it's always been difficult for me to become friends with them. Juu leo utakuwa mabeshte, kesho atasema kitu that you don't agree with, then or something that's controversial, ama you know winds up in a scandal, and then what do you do? How will you cover him? You know. So for me that's the thing. It's a bit uncomfortable, but then also I just don't think I was never really a good political journalist. So it's just me being sour grapes.
Not really, because you used to report on of course corruption, so kuzi ilikuwa nini, kuzara tutabonga hapo mbele, tutabonga juu ya like the threats that came with that. But before that of course kuna hii story moja ile according to mimi when you break, because I saw it on your Twitter account, na ilikuwa ni story na Kevin Kang'ethe, the fugitive, and I have to ask you, like, such news ni upatagaje? Like how do you receive such news and how do you like tweet about it? Una confirm aje like this is a fact? Unzenza kwa haiko pali kwa cell
credible source.
Let me give you the example about Kauchali. So kuna msemo alipigia now leo ndio nimeibreak.
Yes.
So jana usiku jioni tu nilikuwa nimefika hao.
That's Wednesday evening.
Wednesday evening.
Yes,
Nilikuwa nimefika keja hata sijamsalimia wife naona simu. I'm like, ai man, kwanza masaa zimepita za kuchukua simu.
Yeah.
So lazima nimuombe kwanza, can I take this call? So nimechukua. So ni msee tu namjua, nimemjua for years, but ni big wig on these Twitter streets.
Yeah.
But pia kona sources za security. So amenichapia, he's like, hey man, we usiambie mtu mwingine ati ni mimi nimekupatia hii form. But uchali this Kevin Kangethe, the one who's been arrested, he was supposed to be extradited. Sahi kuna mkutano kubwa sana kumhusu. Na ame-escape. I was like, what? From where? Muthaiga. I was like, man, I was there just earlier. So when I told him, look, let me confirm, I hung up the phone. And I was like, okay, huenda what he's saying is correct. And it's likely that it's correct. But if I go out with it now, itakuwa ni noma if I'm wrong. Na hiyo noma itakuwa ni yangu. So you start calling people in now security services, now official sources, to try and see if you can confirm. You call guys who you know in DCI, etc. So in terms of verifying a story, utachukua kama steps 2-3. But in terms of getting the news, it can come from anywhere. Mse hatujaongea na yeye for almost, I want to say almost 6 months. Sijaongea na yeye, sijapata simu yake. Other times, you know, it can be a cab ride. I was telling the taxi driver that I rode with on the way here. Iyo cash in transit story ya last year. There was a cab driver who I was riding with, and that was his last ride of the day. Juu alikuwa naenda kumpea nini, I think one of his relatives chakula. Juu umse alikuwa one of those people who was arrested. And from there you start talking, then unapewa angle ingine ya story. You get, or you'll meet with someone in an event somewhere, anakukumbuka. Or they'll have seen you on the news. So it depends. It really depends on the story and the nature of the story. Some you're just lucky. Others, it's because you've developed like a source. Others, it's because people trust you. So it can be any one of those things.
Oh, okay. Okay. Na saa nini ulikuwa menda Muthaiga? What were you doing there?
So Muthaiga nilikuwa naenda kutafuta mtu for story ingine nilikuwa nafanya. Sitasema on this podcast juu haijatoka. So nilikuwa naenda kumtafuta just to get some insights about an angle that I was looking into. That was like, juu hiyo ripoti yenye nilipewa now after kuconfirm, ilikuwa maybe 30 minutes before umse atoroke. So I was just wishing to myself, na nilikuwa na kanyi nini cameraman wetu, I wish tungekuwa hapo just 30 minutes later tuone hiyo action yote iki unfold. But you know, sometimes you're not that lucky. Say I wound up getting the nini later anyway. So now that's basically what a journalist's job is one day. Like utapewa story, there's something that you need to confirm, you have to go to different places, confirm, speak to people nini. And in that way una bump into news.
But then lazima nikuulize, let's say uko at Muthaiga police station and you're a journalist and you see Kangethe escaping, are you supposed to kupiga nduru
ama nimpige sweep
ama mpige picha ama mpige sweep ama mpige picha? What are you supposed to do as a journalist? Like, are you supposed to report ama be part of the news? Because if you arrest him, so you're now part of the news.
I think it depends from event to event. Kama hiyo ya Kangethe, si polisi wako huko. So sisi tungefanya tu job yetu and follow what it is that the police are doing.
So you tell the police, anahepa ama what happens?
Well, I mean, kama ni mtu siezi nyamaza. For me, if it's a dangerous fugitive,
madara like that one.
Siezi nyamaza hadi weenda hapana. No, like if I'm seeing it happen in front of me, no, I'm not going to. But that's like the age-old dilemma of journalism. You remember that picture in Ethiopia of
the vulture
and the child? Right? Like, what should the guy have done? And it's a very, very big dilemma that many times, many journalists, if they're lucky, they don't have to face that dilemma in their career. Me, I'm not lucky. I've faced it a few times. And you know, what has always happened is that you do the thing for the person and then report, or alongside reporting. So like I was telling you before it started, that's exactly what happened with the Riverside terrorist attack. kwanza hiyo ilikuwa ni story interesting sana. Like tulikuwa tumetoka from an interview, a very good friend of mine. And
hapo Riverside.
Yeah. Not Riverside, ilikuwa ni
that area.
Yeah. So ilikuwa ni mimi, Kanyi na Sam. Sam and Kanyi work with me at Africa Uncensored. So they both are cameramen come producers. Sam Saini our head of investigations, Kanyi ni head of camera.
Yeah.
So tumetoka hiyo shoot. Tunavuka hiyo what do you call it, your bypass, the new link road between Westlands hapo Raptor Road na Riverside.
Yeah, najua.
We've just turned on, we were laughing, that part why we were laughing I'll tell you off set. Then nikasikia mlipuko, big one.
This is around what time?
This is around like 2:30 thereabouts, like just as the things are kicking off, and I'm like, hey, hiyo ni tire burst ama ni nini? So you know the way Kenyans are, you keep quiet so that you can listen
more.
You can listen more. So we switch off the radio in a taxi, and we start to hear gunfire. Instinctively all of us bila kuambiana, Kanya akashika kamera yake, Sam akashika kamera yake, nikapewa mic, twende. Tumetoka hadi tukamwacha kamera taxi driver nyuma, tukamwambia we tufuate. So we've run down the road.
Kuna traffic your time?
Kuna traffic. It's like 2:33 p.m. so it's just about, it's building towards rush hour.
Yeah.
So as we're running, we're hearing gunfire now on our left, just behind Consolata School. And so we tell people like, yo, turn back, there's something bad that's happening. So you see that as the thing's happening and we're filming all of this, we're also trying to tell people, hey, you need to be safe. Tukifika hapo tu Prime Bank, hapo tu kwa hiyo cross junction ya kwenda Kileleshwa ama kwenda Riverside, tumepatana na watu wawili. Both of them have gunshot wounds, an older guy and a younger guy. Hapo tukasema, hey man, before we go towards the sound of the gunfire, let's stop and help these guys. So we try and flag down cars, watu wasimami.
Is it gunshot wounds zilikuwa which part of the body?
So kuna wote zilikuwa za tumbo. So the old man I think ilikuwa tumbo juu alikuwa ashatwa shati. The young man ilikuwa pia tumbo juu like the exit wound was behind over here. It was bleeding onto his shirt. So we've tried to flag down guys aren't stopping. Finally we flag down 2 border guys. We tell them, please just take these guys to hospital, they've been shot. Then we keep going.
Na hii time uliuliza nini happen ama you didn't even
so tulikuwa tunauliza wakasema tu watu wameanza kupiga risasi ni nini. So we go now towards the overpass hapo hiyo ya nini, there's a overpass that's been built for students of the university. Hapo kulikuwa na wasee Chiromo. So kulikuwa na wasee wanauza manguo huko. So Sam hang back now, mi na Kanyi tukaenda mbele kiasi. So Sam ndio alishoot akawauliza nini mefanyika. Then now the guy said, hii ni kama ni terrorist attack. Tuliona kagari kadogo iliingia hapa, ikasimama, then watu wakatokea, then all of a sudden boom, you know. Na hii yote iko kwa kamera. So that time Sam is getting that, he's right behind us. He's also filming us from behind, and then Kanyi is with me. We're going forward, gunshots. We arrive there like literally when the first police arrive, like the first Subaru ya kwanza yenye ilifika, tulikuwa tushafika. Ambulance ya kwanza ilipofika tulikuwa tushafika. Man ndio hiyo bana, unaenda now and you're trying to figure out where you should place yourself in a situation like this. So you try and be behind the police, lakini wako wachache. Then there's some private firearm holders wako. Then you remember the story of this SAS soldier who went in and saved everybody. He was vungu jamani. Anyway, but we saw him like he came at the time just right as ATPU alifika. Tulimwona amekuja, he had a big rifle, kwa amevaa hizo mabalaclava, akaingia. I don't know which side aliana. That's the last time that I saw him. But like to your question, in a situation like that, you're kind of like almost like making it up as you go along, or at least that's what happened with me. It was like making it up as you go along, but also trying to remember, okay, you have a duty not to make guys panic. So when you're reporting, when you're saying things on your phone, just say what you can see.
Yeah.
Then if there's any people who are injured, you know, so like wakati tulipoingia kuna dem alikuwa ameruka fence and went and hid in the river. So at that time polisi walikuwa washa advance. It was a bit safe, so we were trying to convince her to come out and go back. Kuna mama alimfuata, alijaribu kuruka fence, yeye alianguka akavunja mguu. Man, hiyo siku ilikuwa ni crazy sana. So and you're seeing all of this unfolding. So you're trying to make sense of, okay, sawa, should I cover this? Should I do what? You know, and then also at the same time trying not to get in the way of the people who are there to do their jobs. Police, ATPU, Red Cross, you know, first responders.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult dilemma. So that dilemma we face, it's actually not easy. You know, it's not easy at all.
Because another thing ile nishaisikiaga people ask, like during a terrorist attack, what should be reported, considering pia terrorist anza kwa online akiwatch akina ALLAN NAMU asema makarao na kama na side. So like kuna kwa pia na hiyo dilemma.
Ilikuwa ni dilemma kubwa sana. So that's why wakati nilikuwa na report, I was just reporting what I've seen. Not trying to say ati polisi wako hapa nini. And the only time that we reported now what we saw everything was after. But at the time when I was doing like the stand-ups on my phone, I was just trying to report as like the bare minimum of what it is that I could say, because tulikuwa na hiyo experience ya Westgate.
Yeah.
And sikuwa kwa scene hiyo siku, but I remember watching it and being given reports and actually calling the newsroom to tell them that there's an attack that's going on. And some of the reporting at that time, and again, it's because it was people's first time reporting something that big. Some of it crossed lines that we maybe shouldn't have crossed. And it's just trying to remember that that you're both a journalist, but the information that you share can be used by everybody. And for a terrorist, that's kind of what they want. But at the same time, you also have to balance against the public interest. The public needs to know that there's something that's going down. So kuna dilemmas mingi sana kwa journalism.
Because nakunga time ya Westgate kuna watu walikuwa na tweet like, there are people hiding in the toilet, nini police. Afuta wanaambia pia terrorist yuko online akicheki ile ina happen. Alafu historia ya Riverside waga interesting because depending on who you talk to, they always give very different timelines. So when unasema mulifika hapo around 2:30 and you're like basically the first journalist.
Like 2:30 going into 3 if I remember correctly.
Because now I was talking to someone and alikuwa niambia that the whole thing started at around 11 and I feel like that was too early.
11 ni mapema sana.
Sindio?
Mapema sana.
And then now the interesting thing, when this person told me that, kuna best yangu alikuwa nawaka hapo Riverside. I also asked him like, hiki tulianza around sangabi? Akaniambia yes, around 11. I come like for 3 hours watu wajasikia risasi. So I don't know if it's the trauma, maybe trauma your place. Paka like it messed up with their
it definitely happened in the afternoon because first of all, where it happened, it's such Westlands, there are a lot of people from the diaspora, different countries, etc. It's a big hotel. For it to have happened at that time and until the afternoon, nobody knows. No, that I don't think it's true. Maybe it might have been just the trauma of what happened. But it definitely happened in the afternoon.
Okay. And also, is that another maybe thing you also have to accept as a reporter? Trauma. That sometimes I'm going to walk and like flirt with death. Because if you're going towards a terrorist attack, anything can happen. So is it something new fikiria kama hiyo time kijua kuna terrorist attack hapa na bado mnaenda kureport? Is there you like a stray bullet or what?
That's an interesting question. Tukiwa hapa, I'll give you a different answer. Takwambia, it's something that we think about. But when you're in the situation, you really have to be very restrained to know that, okay, actually I'm running towards a dangerous situation. I have to keep myself secure. And you know, I don't even know whether I should say this. Like a lot of the time I found myself, you know, wanting to, you know, to go forward, thinking that I'm a journalist, they won't hurt me. But reminding myself and also being reminded by Kanye, hey man, we're able to hold back kidogo. So I think the answer is it really, you need to really be centered in yourself and remember that if you're going into a certain situation and it's dangerous, then the worst story is the one that you never get to tell because you're dead. So you have to be able to protect yourself. When we were younger, we were like, kaende, you know. And that's the thing about being a young man. You know, what kona maujinga sa, you know, like, let me tell you, if you've survived until you're 40 something, hey man, survive maujinga mingi sana, very many risks. And the same can be said for when you're in those kinds of situations. So I think the older that I've become, the more maybe like restrained and the more like aware of what it is that I'm going into that I became.
Okay.
But when I was younger, I think I was a lot more foolish.
Alafu nini hii attack ya Westgate unasema hauku report because unajua we just assume naturally like ka Westgate may happen lazima ALLAN wako involved. So what happened? It was a Saturday morning, eh?
It was a Saturday. So what happened was on the 6th of September, our son was born.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So mi nilikuwa paternity leave. And weirdly enough, ilikuwa mimi na wife tulikuwa tunaendanga Westgate almost every Saturday kufanya shopping nini juu ilikuwa close na penye tulikuwa tunaishi. That weekend we were just at home. And I get a call from a close relative who had a friend who was there. And this is around 12:30. And she was like, hey, what my friend is telling me, she's hiding somewhere. She can see guys who look like terrorists and they're shooting everybody. Nayo nimepiga simu. I've called the office and I'm like, hey man, there's looks like a terrorist attack. You guys need to be aware. Kuna mtu hapo alisema, tumepata hiyo news, hapana ni robbery. So I was like, no, it's not what I'm being told. Tukabishana kiasi, aka hang up. Then obviously later I think maybe they got other sources and they confirmed. So I wasn't there that first day or even the second day. It was crazy going to cover it. And on Monday ndio sasa nika slip out of the house. Tukakutana na Moha Westi juu hata Moha kuwa. And the reason why we weren't there was because in August we had done this story about Sheikh Abu Drogo and the way he had been murdered. And that had caused all sorts of problems for us. To the extent that when Westgate happened, I remember a lot of, like, not a lot of, but a few journalists, you know, are like, you see now these guys that you're defending, look at what they've done, you know. So it was like a weird thing, and we could see some of that chatter online. So Moha and I we were in Westland somewhere, and we sat down at a friend of his shop, and we talked. We're like, okay, so should we go down there and start reporting? And we're like, yeah, so tuende pamoja. We walked from that place.
Now this is on Monday.
Tukapita Electric Avenue. Then we start going down. Remember where the Curios nini were? So tukipita hapo, watu walimuona Moha. At that time, of course, kulikuwa na mauongo mingi sana zilikuwa zime. Sijui mattress, sijui what. Oh man, guys started cheering for Moha. Hey, jichopevu, enda utuambie ukweli. There's a crowd that was gathering. Like, I was like, shit, man. Okay. So then hiyo ilitupatia psych. So tukaenda chini hadi Mwanzi Road. Then now tukapatana na live track yetu, tukaanza coverage hapo. From there, man, sources. Exactly a month later, tukatoa hiyo documentary yetu ya Westgate. Because I think that Monday when we made the decision to go there, a lot of people who had been kind of waiting for, you know, to give us info, started to give us information. And I mean, it was a very sad experience covering it. But it was a very, was also it was affirming to know that people would be interested in what we had to report about Westgate. Yeah.
Okay. Because indomly exposed the fact that like a few soldiers stole things. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Man.
Kenyans tunakwaga
Hey, man.
na a certain level of,
The morning after hiyo story ran, nimeka simu on the side of the bed. Meamka. So I've gone into the phone. And I get a message. I see a message from some bigwig cop at Kilimani police station.
Yeah.
Na niambia enda ureport. Tuambie what you know about Westgate.
Yeah.
I'm like, Allah, imemchapia Moa. Moa is like, hata mimi nimepata hiyo message. We called our boss.
Report like, that means the statement, ama report?
Go and record a statement.
Oh, okay.
Go and record a statement. You people are, what do you call it? Persons of interest.
Yeah,
Surely tumeenda kwa ofisi. Kwa ofisi kuna watu wamekuja kututafuta. Mapolisi. Tuliambiwa, you guys don't step out. In the afternoon, Kimayo, huyo ametoa statement that these guys they should be arrested. They're not patriots. Man,
was the IG then?
Yeah, he was the IG at that time. It was drama. It was a lot of drama.
Kimayo ndo likuwaga mtu wa Siege ilikuwa nani?
That press conference.
Yeah, Siege.
Under Siege. Hiyo alitutaja kwa hiyo press conference now after. Akasema, man, hao watu wawili. How can you report when we're under Siege?
Because nagaga your story ya Siege. And how was it like working with Moha on such stories? Because najuaga like there is the stereotype. Alafu the fact that Moha kila mtu anajua is a devout Muslim. So kulikuwaga na shida kitu kama hiyo, like when you are reporting on like terrorism, I feel some type of way we are going to be
no. And this is why he doesn't get enough credit for the amount of restraint that it must have taken to report things objectively. When you can see people from not just your religion but from your community being targeted, right? Both, I mean, the people on our team who are also like really badly affected by some of the things that happened after Westgate. And I think because it was seen in a very Muslim versus Christian light, then he became the target for it. But I remember constantly asking guys, he and I have the same facts in our story. How come nobody is calling me the terrorist sympathizer? It's because of his name. And it was very stressful, I know, for him specifically, to the extent that there was a time, I think a year after, he got like some very serious threats. Very serious threats. There was someone who hacked into the website of one of these major newspapers and wrote a ton of shit about him. Hacked the website and wrote a ton of shit about Moha. You get on the website. And at that time now, I think the company had to issue a statement. It was, you see, and that's the other side that people don't see. So for me, I felt very bad for him because, what do you do when you're in a situation where we both know the facts and we report them objectively, but one person is getting the shit for it? It wasn't fair, I think. And I think one day people will realize just how important his reporting was for us understanding the whole terrorism situation in Kenya.
Alafu kitu ingine pia nilikuwa na plan kukuuliza, when Westgate ili happen, it took a very long time for Uhuru kutoa statement. As journalist muliambua shida ilikuwa nini? Because nakunga alitoa statement usiku and respectfully alikuwa nakanika, alikuwa bado
shocked.
Lit. Ni kama alikuwa mahali it's tough to know what would have happened inside that situation room. And at the time I was also like, why isn't the president talking?
Yeah.
But remember guys, the president is the president.
Yeah.
akitoa statement, maybe things have changed where presidents these days talk when they don't have the full facts, but when a president makes a statement about something like that, you need to have the full facts. You need to have your narrative straight. Maybe that took longer than we should have than was expected, but like lazima angekuwa na narrative yake. But yeah, so for me, I'm not really, like in hindsight, I'm not really judgmental about that. If anything, I think that's the time when you're supposed to be very keen about how you manage information. And remember, that was one of the worst times for that government in terms of management of information. Itumbi alikuwa na tweet, internal security wana contradict, Ministry of Defense wana contradict. Ndio story ya mattresses ilitokea. Tunakumbuka. Ilikuwa Karangi na mseni mwenye ni governor wa Kajiado anaitwaje, former internal security minister Olelenku. So Olelenku is giving a statement, Karangi ana whisper kwa yak, yes, in fact it was mattresses that, you know, like there was all sorts of miscommunications inside. And I think that the biggest change from Westgate to, I'd say, not even Garissa, because Garissa was a bit of a shit show also. To Riverside was the management of information. And I think it's important for people to be able to manage the kind of information that reaches the public, but not be dishonest with them.
Alafu acha nijue, what happened first, Abu Drogo ama Garissa?
Abu Drogo ilikuwa that, I think it was that year. So
2013
that was
still?
2013. Garissa ilikuwa ni 2015.
Okay.
I want to say 2015. Garissa was 2015,
So Abu Drogo, what was the story? Ni story gani mko mnatry pursue, and why was the government angry?
So, you know, Abu Drogo was a well-known sort of sympathizer to Al-Qaeda for a long time. He had links with the family of one of the main suspects of Al-Qaeda. The main Al-Qaeda sort of like agents here, the person who was behind the 98 attack.
Okay.
But, you know, because, and he had also spent time in jail.
Hapa Kenya.
Hapa Kenya. But because there was no real crime that he had committed, beyond that, then now he was let go. But then he became this very radical preacher. And very sympathetic to not just Al-Qaeda, but Al-Shabaab. And if you listen to the kinds of things that he was saying, like it was incredibly inflammatory, right? Eventually what I think was found was that him and along Sheikh Makaburi as well were part of those people who were like the ideologues that were influencing young men to you know, do this hijrat from Kenya to Somalia. But what happened that year was that he was killed. He was driving down Bamburi Road, Mombasa. It was him, his wife, and I think some kids in the car. Walikuwa na matatu. So what seems to have happened is like a car pulled up alongside him. Someone came, and as they're moving, wakawapepeta.
Wote?
So
ama yeye peke yake?
Yeye peke yake. The wife alipata moja kwa mguu, but it actually hit the engine and then entered her leg. So the kind of marksmanship for you to be able to shoot a person from a moving vehicle is quite something. So he then pulls over to the side, slumps over, and he dies. The only person who dies in that car. And that sparks outrage from the people, his followers. And even further radicalization. So our story was not really about Abu Drogo, but he was one of the more prominent people who were killed in a string of many enforced disappearances and murders when dealing with terrorism. And at that time, that was the model. You hear of a terrorist, eliminate him. Doesn't matter, you know. Don't go and hold, you know, arrest him. I think there were very few who were arrested, like El Givabuire and you know, a few others. And so our story was like, look, Kenya's, I guess, approach to terrorism has been to eliminate terror suspects. And not just terror suspects, sometimes innocent, sometimes people who are members of the family. And what it was doing is that it was radicalizing people even further. So when we came out with the facts of that story, the security state was quite upset.
Okay.
Yeah, they were quite upset. And, I remember hearing about calls that were being made to our bosses, being asked, and calls from very high up.
Yeah.
Wakiuliza, say ni mapatriots ama ni nini? Why do they hate their country? And our point was, like, look, terrorism is a terrible crime.
Yeah.
But are you going to solve it through intelligent policing, or are you going to do it through street justice? Obviously, a lot of people disagreed with that question, because they're like, these guys are coming to kill us. Even them, they should die by the sword. And I think that's what sort of like set things off there.
Okay. And then so this is 2013.
2013, yeah.
Westgate 2013. Garissa University.
Garissa, I think, was it wasn't a year after. I think it was 2015.
2015.
Yeah, 2015.
Alafu pia nakumbuka kuna time ya Mpeketoni ilikuwa
Mpeketoni ilikuwa nini wa World Cup, ilikuwa ni 2014. Yes. Because it happened around the time of the World Cup, either the quarterfinals or something like that. Yeah.
Mpeketoni pia nakumbuka there was a controversy around it, ama what was happening in Mpeketoni?
So Mpeketoni, what the controversy was, if I remember correctly, was that there seemed to have been people within the community wenye walikuwa napeana hii story. You get?
Yeah.
And so there was an allegation that it's not just terrorism, but it's also local grievance with people who are, with people who are perceived to be foreigners. Aini yangu, thank you. With people who are perceived to be foreigners in that part of the country. So Manisha wa Kikuyu, because there are a lot of Kikuyus, a lot of people from different parts of the country that moved down there. And then there was also the allegation that some of the more powerful people in the county were giving succor to the terrorists.
Yeah.
So at that time, the governor of Lamu, Timami, was arrested. A couple of big wigs as well. And that Mpeketoni happens, then Garissa happens, and the entire leadership of northern Kenya and Muslim Kenya was then called to account. I remember Duale making a statement that, we're going to get these guys. You remember? Walikuwa wamewekwa under pressure sana.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily think was the right thing to do, because what it then did was it gave license for a lot more murders to happen. But I think eventually, through the work of the National Counterterrorism Center, Ambassador Martin Kimani, a couple of other guys, then now policing around terrorism became more intelligent. Right? There was that Nairobi Metropolitan Command that was, I think, like the first multi-agency approach to a crime of this nature. And from there, now things got better. But the controversies were many. Zilikuwa ni mingi sana.
Na historia nini, Garissa ilihapenaje? Did you travel there during your nini? Muliripotaje?
Garissa, I didn't report. I was just, at the time, I was special projects editor.
Okay.
So the people who went down to report were Ian Wafula, mwenye ako BBC sahi, na Hussein Mohammed mwenye pia alikuwa BBC, and I think he's still at BBC. Yeah. Hussein Mohammed now sio yule
si wa State House.
Hussein, this Hussein huwa tunamuitanga Fiber. Alikuwa nakaa kama msee wa Fiber. You remember that Fiber ad? Yeah. So those two guys, they were quite young, we were mentoring them at the time, and so that was one of like their first big stories. Yeah.
Because hiyo ilikuwa na watu wengi sana walidedi.
147 bana.
It's a lot.
More than Westgate, more than Riverside. It was one of the worst. Like, weirdly enough, yesterday kijana wangu comes and he tells me, hey, our teacher was telling us about this attack in Garissa, where 147 people died, and it was like 2 days. And I was like, man, actually, yani, you're telling me things like historically, things that I lived through. And I was like, yeah, man, nimezeka. And that's the same boy who was born just a few days before Westgate. It was so weird.
Okay.
Ni kama nyako 18 sahi, they don't know about post-election violence. They don't know.
Yeah, 'cause
Can you
walikuwa-
imagine?
they were too
Ni
small.
crazy sana bwana. Hey man, PEV ulikuwa wapi?
PV ndio ilikuwa tumeanzisha geto ndio geto radio ilikuwa imeanza so it's even funny like even one of the classic jokes za rapture because nasema unanirigi rapture was what he gave us a story of vile now PV is happening makarao wako involved na riots and then they were nonga ile story yake atu walikuwa kwa ma3 and then they were robbed because there was no one on the road ati makarao hakuwa kuna deal na protesters walisikia gari kado alafu ati yaka trofoni yake inje akihope that he'll go back for it later so PV really happening hiyo time but I remember your time it was interesting because there's this infamous interview your time ulikuwa KTN by that time sindio? There's the infamous interview ile mukumbuka sijui kama you because you're part of KTN kona ikumbuka but there was Mutahingunyi na Bethel Kiplagat and I remember them arguing before the results were announced. Mutahi akisema ati if Raila is not announced as the winner there's going to be chaos and Kiplagat alikuwa na argue naye anamwambia no kwa sababu anasema like it was so obvious this one guy is winning then last minute kila kitu
kachange.
So ulikuwa
nilikuwa na report
ulikuwa bado junior ama you'd become
so by that time so niliingia KTN December 2005 so by that time at least nilikuwa nimereport for a while that was the first time like I went live as a reporter like on the ground actually my first live report ilikuwa Mudhurwa wakati voting ilikuwa imeisha then I was sent to KICC to do interviews now with the leaders as they came in that evening the evening before the day of the announcement or like 2 evenings before I remember interviewing Uhuru Kimunya Ruto.
I remember that interview. I remember interview ya Kimunya. I think Kimunya said we are still waiting for the results from our strongholds. Remember because at that time there was like a 1 million gap.
I remember
interview
alisema hivyo. I think he went and said it on someone else in studio. Me I was doing it at KICC. Uhuru alikuwa
alikuwa na uhuru wake
alikuwa mavitu tayari
let's just say wakati alikuwa ananipatia hiyo story pia mimi nilikuwa na record story ingine kwa kichwa yangu but he spoke well. I'm like, have you ever interviewed that guy? He's Uhuru.
You were supposed to?
Hey man, one day you should call him here. I'm sure well I don't know him but this is a sort of vibe that I think maybe he might like. But he's very eloquent. Very eloquent, very very focused guy. So I remember 2007 he came, interviewed him. Kimunya came, interviewed him. Then Ruto came.
Alisema nini? Uhuru?
He was like we are confident. You know that time alikuwa amejump ship from KANU Kanini akaunganisha KANU na PNU. That time KANU, which was the opposition party, joined with hands with the ruling party. So he was defending that decision. Kimunya came, he defended. Ruto's interview was the one that was the most interesting. Like he was very confident. I remember that day. And I remember asking him a question like, what if you don't win? And he was like, God forbid we don't win. God forbid. And he just stopped there. And you know, maybe it's hindsight, maybe I'm reading too much into stuff, but that thing really stuck in my mind that day because of how confident those guys were. But covering, you know, there was action outside that happened when the result was announced. The action inside KICC was just like, it was crazy.
Hii sasa ni ile time nani
wakina Orengo wana shout Masakarua ndio huyu peke yake ana defend PNU peke yake. Like me, let me tell you, I've never seen men from nini Kawa. Like man, Masakarua is where she's something else. She stood up and she defended Kibaki like no one's business.
Ile time Kivuitu iko State House hii time.
Kivuitu hakuwa State House. Kivuitu saa alikuwa hapo juu KICC, commissioners wengine walikuwa hapo kwa meza. Then now debate inaendelea hapa. remember that statement that she made, like when results come from you guys' side, nothing's happening. But when results come from our side, ears start hurting. Man, wase waliamka, no, nini. Yeah, kasimama. We're watching all of this unfold. Then I remember just now before Kivuitu is taken up and then goes to State House, Raila akaingia. Man, then now just everybody stood up and it was like chaos inside the room. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I remember standing on a chair and telling one of our cameramen to stand up with me to try and film. And I saw mse wa GSU akatoa hiyo nini yake refu akijaribu kumgonga Raila. Man, drama. Miguna, if I remember correctly, we were coming out. Kimayo was the head of Nairobi at the time. Amemsecure Kivuitu with another police officer who I don't remember. They were taking him up. From that side over there, uko chini, I see Miguna coming out. Now I didn't know who Miguna was at the time until later. And I remember him screaming at Kivuitu, we won't accept stolen results. We won't accept. Like guys were upset. Wase wakatoka. The entire place was told, you guys just leave. I remember now believing and seeing my boss now, Linus Kaikai, doing a stand-up as he's being kicked out by GSU. He's being pushed out, and he's talking on camera who are being kicked out. And now me and my younger guy, I'm just watching all of this unfold. And then I get to the gate of KICC City Hall, and I looked up the road now towards Uhuru Park. Behind Uhuru Park, I saw a pillar of black smoke just rising. Hiyo sasa ilikuwa ni Kibera. By the time tumefika ofisi, and like the office was just the I&M, by the time tumefika ofisi, tumesikia wase wa K24 wameporwa kila kitu, wamepigwa. Watu, Kibera is a no-go zone. Then because the year before KTN had been raided, news ilitokea ati, hey man, we might be raided again. Watu waishia. This is how I'm remembering it. There might be facts that I'm missing. So tukatoka. The results were announced.
Nikikurudisha nyuma kidogo. So UGSU alitry kugonga Raila. What happened to him?